Welcome everybody to this month's Tech Tuesday. Tech Tuesday is a program of outreach and to the community to offer education on entrepreneurship, innovation. Right now we have Eric Pavia, our entrepreneur in residence. And thank you everyone for joining. Eric, take it away.
Hi, everybody. I'm super excited to have Isai Cortez with us today. So I'm going to let Isai give the longer bio on himself. But we met through an online community called Casa, which is bringing together people. I guess it's not really just tech people, but it's Hispanic and Latino people, a lot of them who are in tech. And it's actually led to be bringing on a bunch of the speakers onto Tech Tuesday. I guess actually taking a step back, let me give some context on Tech Tuesday. I got way too excited to talk about ACA. So Tech Tuesday is an initiative that we've been running to bring in some voices to talk more about entrepreneurship and tech to the region. So being in El Paso, Juarez, we don't have a lot of people that are building, in technology. And so we thought it'd be a great idea to bring more people from the outside in over the next several months to talk about their entrepreneurial journeys. The idea being, if we hear more about how people got their companies started, it makes the whole thing a lot more approachable. So my role, I'm on the entrepreneur in residence. I'm the founder of a company called Pantheon. We're making fitness software. I'm also a professor at the University of Texas at El Paso, where I teach about entrepreneurial issues to undergrads. So going back to Isai, Isai is, wears many hats. He's a professor at a university. He's a tax attorney. He's one of the founders of Casa, this networking group that I mentioned. He's also the founder of a company called Synkbooks. So Isai, rather than me try to explain all of those pieces, I think it'd be better if you could just kick things off by giving us a short bio. So where are you from, and what was the trajectory in your life from where you were from to building Synkbooks, the company that you run now?
Oh, you guys are going to trip out because this has kind of always been my plan in life, right? To be in the tax world, and I'll explain to you why. So my name is Isai Bismark Cortez. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles in the hood, like, poor, single mom, you know what I mean? The whole deal. But the reason I'm in this arena is kind of crazy, but my family, they are refugees from El Salvador. So when they came to this country, I was like 4 years old, I was born here, but when I was like 4 years old, my grandpa, they crossed the border and they were here. And they were working like, blue collar, jobs like cleaning washing dishes and doing stuff like that, And my grandpa got a notice from the IRS. And my grandpa was like the toughest guy I ever met, right? And so he was so scared. And I told him when I was a little kid, I was like, when I grow up, I'm gonna be an accountant and I'm gonna fight the IRS so they leave my grandpa alone. And it's crazy, right? Because I've always had that sort of advocate sort of way of being, you know what I'm saying? Where like I'll go up, you guys don't know, I go up against, I litigate, like meaning like I will try to settle with the IRS and I'm like, okay, you're not gonna settle with me? Fine. I'll petition, I'll go to tax court. I don't care. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of losing. Like, I know, like, I'm not unreasonable, right? So in my world as a tax attorney, like, we try to like negotiate with the IRS, try to come up with like something fair. And if they're being unfair, I'll challenge it. I don't care. Like, I'm not, I've won a lot of cases. I've lost too, going to trial on stuff that I really believe was something good for my clients. You know what I mean? So, that's kind of like the advocate part where it came from me. I started school a little bit later, I graduated from high school and then kind of like didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, kind of messed around a little bit after 18 and then started college again when I was 22. And then I went to Cal State North, I went to community college, went to Cal State Northridge. And, I was, this gentleman was really helpful, kind of sort of, guide me in my life, just happened to be in my life. Wasn't like a close friend or anything, but I was he was really thought I would be a good lawyer, and he kind of really pressured me into being there. And I just thought that's not for people like me, you know what I'm saying? And so then I started like took the LSATs and stuff like that, and then I met some people at some of these I don't know if like those forums, those law school forums, you know, like when they would come to your area. And so I met someone from Penn State Law School. They were making a big initiative for like a big change in the way they were doing stuff. Not a lot of people of color at their school. And the woman I met was LGBTQ, and she just like really was like really kind to me. Out of all the people I talked to, she's the only one who was really like kind. And so when I got accepted, I was like, I'm going there. I don't care. Like, she just made me feel like good. And it was still like one of the best things I ever did. I got to, the Secretary of State was like the first ever Hispanic Secretary of State was Pedro Cortez. And I got to meet him, and he was really like a really good support person in my law school endeavor. So that was kind of neat to have him in my life. And you know, and then from there, I hated law school, and but I love tax. I was like, I hated it. And then I met a professor, and he kind of like got me to geek out on tax. And I was like, oh, this I like, you know, breaches and all that other crap. I don't know, man. I didn't like it, criminal. And I didn't like it. So I got into tax, got really into tax after I graduated from law school. I got my master's of law from tax. I went to go work at a tax firm. I didn't like it there. And one day, you know, I went to start my own practice, and I've been doing that ever since on my own. You know, very different being on your own than, you know, waiting for your paycheck every 2 weeks. Very different when you're on your own. It's like sometimes you have a, you know, feast or famine. Sometimes you have a nice, sometimes you have no paycheck, you know. So it's cool, and I love it. I've been doing it for a long time. I've been grinding away, you know, but it's definitely not for the faint of heart. Like, before I finish my thing, one of my favorite analogies is the ink analogy, where they talk about entrepreneurs are like people writing a lion. So everybody sees the person writing a lion, and they're like, wow, that person's really brave writing a lion as an entrepreneur. And the person writing the lion is like, how the hell do I get off without getting eaten? You know what I'm saying? And that's what my, that's the best analogy for entrepreneurship that I can describe. So that's a bit about me, and I'm happy to go down the list of stuff that you want to talk about.
So yeah, and can you talk a little bit about you know, Synkbooks, your company? What does the company do, and how did you get that started? Going from being a tax attorney to then being an entrepreneur, which is not like a common trajectory that a lot of people follow.
So I was an entrepreneur as a tax attorney. I went out on my own. So I started my own practice, right? And so I was, you know, from my own practice, I like did the marketing, did the ads, did the, you know, the intakes. And I, you know, at one point I got hired a bunch of people, and I had like 4 lawyers working underneath me. And I just kind of wasn't happy, which is why I did the Pepperdine thing, you know, because I kind of like had a hole in my heart where I was making a bunch of money, but I just wasn't happy. Like the kind of work I do is kind of like, sometimes it gets punted, not because of the people, sometimes because of the people, but sometimes because of the IRS and their bureaucracy. And so then I just kind of was like dealing with a bunch of personality. I just wasn't happy, you know? And so that's where I did the Pepperdine and private practice stuff too. But then the reason I went to do the techie startup was I kept seeing this issue with the bookkeeping, right? And so with QuickBooks, it's QuickBooks is great software, and so I'll never say it's not great. It's just very complicated. But just like anything else, you're inputting and you're validating the data. So as a small business, so if you're not doing it correctly, it's garbage in and garbage out, right? And so what kept happening in my private practice is that I would see the P&L, and it would say, for example, 200,000. Let's say you're a burger shop, $200,000 of cost of goods sold. Then I would see the tax return, and I would see 400,000 of cost of goods sold. It's 200K discrepancy, right? So no big deal. So I would tell the business owner, hey, where'd the other 200K come from? He said, I don't know, ask the bookkeeper. Hey, bookkeeper, where'd the other 200K come from? I don't know, ask the client. We have a controversy. So now the people have to pay me a ton of money to figure out why there's a discrepancy. And what would happen is the bookkeeper or the tax person would disappear because they're like, I don't want to get in trouble. I'm out of here. That's not my problem, right? And so, you know, what would happen is I would have to fix this. I kept fixing it. And I'm like, gosh, like QuickBooks is garbage if you don't know how to use it. Great if you're an accountant, terrible if you're not, right? And so what I kept doing is I kept like sort of like getting better at like doing these audits. So what the scenario I'm talking about is under examination. So you got audited by the IRS, right? So you call me and I come in and I help you. And so I kept getting better at my audits. And what I kept doing is I kept recreating the books and doing P&L that syncs to your tax return, right? That's what people think is happening. They're like, oh, you know, let me do this P&L, and then you give the P&L, the profit and loss, and then you give it to somebody, and then they got to put it on a tax return, but it's two-part. P&L, one part, then you pay me like $1,000, $1,500 or whatever to do the tax return. Let's say it's a corporation or something like that. Then I put it on the corporation. That's just the way it works in the real world, right? So that's because people use GAAP accounting, but GAAP accounting is not required if you're under $5 million. Believe it or not, it's not even required if you're under $25 million, right? So, but that's the system that everyone knows, GAAP. That's cool. But with the IRS, you can use a pen and paper. If you're under $5 million, no one cares, because the rules say books are books. Any records is what they're asking for, right? You just got to be able to describe it to the government and tell them why you came up with these numbers, right? So what I did is I went back and I recreated the way I was doing these audits. So when you're doing our bookkeeping in our software, you can only select categories that are going to be done on your tax return at the end of the year. And why? Because anyone who does bookkeeping or has a small business must file tax return. Optional. People are like, well, I didn't make any money. Like, who asked you if you made money? Did you run a business? Yes, you got to file a tax return. You know, let's say it's an S corp or a C corp or a partnership. You got to file a tax return. You know, so like there's no getting around it. There's some exceptions, de minimis, and for the most part, people aren't going to qualify if you're trying to run a business, right? And so that's kind of like what I started doing. And so like I started developing this software, and the team that built it is in Mexico, in Guadalajara. I don't know if you know Bismarck from Wiseline. He's in our Casa.
Oh, and I know Wiseline. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's in our Slack group too. Bismarck is the CEO of that company, and they're a very successful company. Bismarck's a great guy, and they built our software, and then they handed it off to me, and sort of that's what we've been reiterating for a long time. But one thing I found out, I think everyone here as entrepreneurs will find out soon, is that here's what I learned. And I want you guys to remember this, because this really matters to you. It's going to matter quite a bit. So we were offering the software very de minimis, like $15 a month or $120 a year. And even though I created this really easy to use software, people don't want to do it. They do not want to do it. It's just not something people want to do. They want it to be easy, but they don't want to do it. So what we learned is that I was like, hey, $15 a month, like it's really easy to use. And people are like, I don't care. I'm like, okay, well, how about $500 a month and we'll do it for you? They're like, that's cool. Are you kidding me? You'd rather pay $500 a month and have us do it than pay $50 a month to do it yourself? They're like, yeah, I don't want to touch that. Cool, right? So you'd be surprised on what little bit of value add you can add to people. I mean, it's not a little bit, but like some of the stuff they can do themselves, and they know it because they're watching us do it. Like we're showing them what we did. We're not like hiding anything. We're like, look, this is what we're doing. They're like, all right, cool. See you next month. Oh, wow, that's cool. I just want to know it's in your hands, right? And so the reason I'm telling people to remember that is because you add a lot of value that when you have a skill set that you don't even know people value that much until you're in the trenches and people are like, no, I want you to take care of this problem for me and I'm willing to pay for it. Yeah. So that's kind of like how we ended up here.
What you were dealing with this problem over and over again with the GAAP accounting not making its way into the tax returns. At what point did you say, I'm gonna build the solution instead of waiting for QuickBooks or somebody to come around to like do it? Like what, or charging extra money to like, because you're kind of like cannibalizing your business to some degree, right? Like,
yeah.
Like in theory, probably not in practice, because this is probably good for your practice at the end of the day. But theoretically, like you could just charge people more money to like fix their stuff. Like, why did you decide to go out and build the solution yourself?
Okay, so the first is two questions. So the first part, why did I decide to go build it? Because it didn't exist, right? I know that people need this and it didn't exist. But see, the problem that I made is I listened to other people shoot down my idea. And I listened to a lot of people tell me that nobody would switch from QuickBooks, right? Here's what I've learned. I have thousands of meetings now under my belt, that can tell you one thing. People don't care about QuickBooks, they don't care about Xero, and they don't care about Synkbooks either. That's my software. They are not loyal to any software. They're not loyal. They're not, because they don't care. Like they're like, just get the work done. That's what they're loyal to. You know, sure. Have there been some people that don't want to switch from Xero, don't want to switch from even Peachtree, which is ancient? Yeah, there's some people that don't want to, because they just don't want to mess with their system. But it's not because they're loyal to QuickBooks or Intuit or Xero. It's because they just don't want to mess with that, right? So I wanted to create something. And how I came up with the idea was, I thought, oh gosh, AI, you know, I'll use AI to make this simple. And people still think that AI is going to make this simple. Guess what? People want a human. Why? Because people are like, oh yeah, let the AI do it. Okay, fine, let the AI do it. We all can agree. We understand what that means. So a computer is just going to generate it, right? Then the client's like, hey, Isai, can you make sure it's correctly? I'm like, no. That is work. So if you want me to make sure it's correct, I need to do the work. If I see a number, I'm like, okay, that number says 44,000. That's what it says. Oh, you want me to make sure that the 44,000 is tallied up correctly? Well, guess what? That's what I do for my work, right? That's what people don't understand when it comes to AI, and even myself, right? Because what happened is in 2018, I went to a conference in Thailand. And the conference in Thailand was based on how businesses impact poverty, right? Because now I'm at Pepperdine, I'm working like at Skid Row, I'm working with all these people. So I'm like trying to get like, you know, like this information in my head. I meet this gentleman from China, and they use like AI to help, what's it called? People with disabilities be able to work. Really cool, right? So they do this HR program, and I was like, cool. And I talked to the scientist, he was a really nice guy. And I'm like, dude, like I should try to build this. And that's where I found like people that wrote these artificial intelligence papers. I found this woman in Mexico. I actually, you know, Zoomed with her. And then like a few weeks later, my wife and I were on a plane to Guadalajara to meet with them. It was pretty neat, you know? And that's sort of how that was developed, right? Now, what I was sharing subsequently was that I created this cool tool and nobody used it, right? So it was only like people that I told them, you know, about it. And that's where it came out to where it was not necessarily cannibalizing it in the sense that like, I don't really have any other bookkeepers really using my software other than myself and maybe a few others, but it's more like, hey, we are, and someone who sort of put me on this, he's like, you're now tech-enabled services. And that's kind of essentially where most of the food is, right? Less about people using the software and paying a couple $100s a month or a year. It's more about, and I'm going to double my price real soon because it's like now like a real thing, you know? And so it's more about being able to offer the bookkeeping plus tax returns at the end of the year, making it streamlined, making it simple. And people are really happy with what we're providing them. So it's been like this crazy growth. I think I've, you know, shared on Twitter about. It's been quite nice to have.
So can you expand on that concept of tech-enabled services, and like what does that mean, and how is that different from just like a SaaS company?
Yeah, I think like a SaaS company is, you know, that's in a sense, that's what everybody wants if you're a software developer, because it's more hands-off. It's just people using the software to like, I don't know, send messages. You know, something breaks, they'll send you a message and you fix it, right? $10 a month and stuff like that. Whatever, 15, 20, whatever. Tech-enabled services is more hands-on, right? So now you're getting like actual, like someone's providing some kind of service more than just the software. So we use the technology that we have, plus we offer services that sort of complement that technology in order to sort of like deliver like a complete package of things that somebody wants. So that's essentially in a nutshell what it is, what we do. So it's bookkeeping software, bookkeeping services, and tax services all into one, beginning to end.
And how does the, you know, what is the tech enabled part? Like for you as the service provider, like what is the technology doing for you that like the services alone can't do?
Yeah, exactly. It's basically like using Synkbooks. Like our system is so much easier than QuickBooks. Like it's so much easier. You know, like I just hired a CPA and, you know, I'm like training him 1-2 days in and he's like, I got this. You know what I'm saying? Like with QuickBooks, it's like all these rules. Here's the way I sometimes describe QuickBooks. It's kind of like a tank versus a Camry, right? Camry, best-selling car in America, right? Like I want to be Camry, right? If you want to take a tank because it's got all these extra cool features to get your groceries, like I'm not gonna argue with you. That's cool. Go take a tank. I want to be the Camry. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just want to get like basically what you need, no extra bells and whistles. We do a lot of stuff, don't get me wrong, but like all this extra stuff that people don't care. Let me tell you why people don't care. We're getting all this cleanup work, like cleanup, meaning like people haven't filed in a few years, they haven't done something in a few months and all that stuff. What does that signal to me? That even though QuickBooks has all these features, people don't even care. They're not even doing their books. So why does it matter about forecasts and like all these other things? People aren't even going on it, right? They don't even care. Oh man, my bookkeeper hasn't even done anything in like 4 months. They haven't even seen that, right? Like, so I am just providing you what you need to get you from like proper accounting of your gross receipts and your expenses to your tax return. That's it. And when we do the bookkeeping software, when we do the bookkeeping, we use our own software and we speed along really fast, way faster than you could ever own QuickBooks.
Yeah, so you guys are essentially using the technology to make your services faster and more accurate.
Yep.
And so what happens? So you have this tech-enabled service. What happens to the tech? Like, you already have it built. Do you continue to build it to eventually spin it off into its own business item, or do you just continue to automate more of the services that you're already doing, so that you're just doing less of the service work yourself?
That's something that we're still like kind of like in the process of like looking at, because first it was just bookkeeping software. Then we started adding services. The services took off like crazy, right? So I'm currently in the stages. I was actually going to send in one of our chats, in one of our Casa chats, about what I should call the bifurcation of going back to just having the software be on its own and only marketing the bookkeeping services, and then bringing in Synkbooks as like kind of like more like a little bit lower volume, but the bookkeeping services at a stronger volume, if that makes any sense. So we're still discussing, but whatever feature we fix on Synkbooks, the software in the platform alone, is going to be in part to help the client and in part to help us too. Like we build, like I'm building for myself, right? Because I also do my own bookkeeping on the software, right? So I know what people are looking for. I've fixed the bookkeeping of in tax litigation for hundreds of people under my belt that I've actually litigated or done an examination for. So I have a lot of work under my belt. So I know what I'm doing, right? So I know what to look for, and not trying to overbuild is kind of a very interesting thing, because sure, you can add all these features that nobody cares about,
Yeah. So I mean, one just quick comment. I personally think like tech-enabled services are great businesses because you can bootstrap the technology through the services, and as you build your services, you're also building the technology, so you're becoming more efficient.
Yep.
So you have higher margins that you can either whatever pocket as profit, or you can reinvest into the business. I have a good friend of mine who says that he said any work that's being done in Excel today can be turned into like a valuable business.
100%.
Yeah.
People don't understand that. That's all QuickBooks, Synkbooks, Xero, FreshBooks. We are glorified Excel spreadsheets. It's just a different means to the same end. Seriously, and I'll never deny that. You know what I mean? Like, because all my beta when I went to Guadalajara it was in an Excel spreadsheet, and I showed them. I'm like, I want to turn this into something that looks like this, So yeah. I agree with you.
And it's I mean, this is kind of like I don't know, to anyone listening, like I think there are a lot of things that like aren't sexy. There are a lot of lines of business or a lot of work that's being done that isn't sexy, but if you can provide a service around it and find ways to start automating that service, you can turn that into a business.
Yep. Agreed.
So you've talked a lot about, and you mentioned it right now. A lot of people told you that like you couldn't do this. So where did that come from? What were some of the things that people were telling you, and why did you decide to do it anyway?
So I think the number one thing that people kept telling me were like, no one's going to switch from QuickBooks to Synkbooks, right? And I believe them. Some people were really smart, my favorite people were the ones that were really smart, but just didn't say that. They're like, I don't know. They're like, I don't know if it's gonna work or not. Seems really hard, but go at it, right? The ones that annoy me the most were the ones that were like, oh no, like as a matter of fact, they said it, right? And that's kind of what, to be frank, like really pissed me off, right? After the fact, right? Because like intellectually, like I kind of was like, well, like I guess, right? Like, I don't know, it seems kind of rational, like, yeah. But what I learned, I shared with you all, is sort of like I got in front of people and people are, I'm telling people like, hey, we only work on Synkbooks. We don't touch QuickBooks. People are like, I don't care. How do I switch? like, I was like, whoa. And then all of a sudden I'm talking to more people and more people are like, yeah, I don't care. Like, tell me what I'm supposed to, like, can you help me offboard? So now we have a whole system how to offboard people, save all their files, save it in a folder. We have a copy of the folder just in case. Then we enter everything into Synkbooks and boom, we just continue on with like maybe like a little stop and go. You know what I mean? And so those are the things that people like really got into my head. Another thing, or people were, telling me about building features and all this stuff. I wish personally that I would have spent more time on marketing and advertising. I spent a couple $100K on the project. If I would have to do it again, I would probably put 25 to 50K on building the software and 250K in advertising and marketing. That's true. That's what I would have done. That's
why do you say that? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a very similar insight, which is I didn't start marketing or even thinking about marketing until like I had a product done. And one of the things that I wish I have the same, 2020 hindsight, but I'm curious, like, why do you say that? And like, why would you have done that differently?
Because people are okay with your software not working 100%, just like you were saying. Like if I would have been using Excel, swear to God, people would have still been down with me. You know what I mean? I'm like, hey, we're using Excel. We're gonna, just send me your bank statements every month, and we'll get it on Excel, and then we'll we'll do. People would have been down with me because they're hiring reputation. Here's the three things that I'm telling you that people hire us, because why people hire us: reputation, efficiency, affordability. Can we get the work done, and communication. Are we going to be available for you? And are we affordable? Those are the three things that people really, really care about quite a bit. People think it's like all these features and stuff. And so if I had to go back again, I would have built a simpler, even simpler project, added features on later, and took on paying clients ASAP. But again, hindsight's 2020. I mean, I'm so grateful for what I have right now. But I still have a lot of features that people aren't using, but I know they're gonna need them down the road. I really do know that. But kind of where we're at today,
Yeah, I mean, so I call it overbuilding. It's a trap that I think a lot of entrepreneurs fall into, which is you have this sort of like ideal product in your head that like, you want to take to market, all the problems that you need to solve because you've been thinking about it longer than anyone else. And so you build it all before you even get started. So what, I guess, sorry, lost my train of thought. What led you to overbuild, and like, why didn't you launch sooner when you were first getting started?
Oh no, we launched right away. I mean, there's a couple of not hiccups. Let me rephrase that. There's a lot of crap that went down, and then the pandemic went down, right?
Yeah.
So, my mom, I told you guys I grew up a single mom. My mom got stage 4 cancer, literally like 2 weeks before I was gonna launch. My mom got stage 4 cancer, and my mom, my mom's a badass. You know what I'm saying? That's just, there's no way to just, she like crossed the border by herself at 17 years old. You can imagine what kind of woman that is, right? And so, she survived stage 4 cancer. Half her face got removed. And she has the worst luck. Like my mom doesn't smoke and she doesn't drink. 95% of the people that get oral cancer smoke and drink, and my mom is the anomaly, right? So she got it just maybe like from, who knows, the air or something like that, or maybe bad healthcare. But we went through that right as I was gonna launch. And so it was like, I don't know if you guys ever, a family member with cancer, but the subsequent treatment is even worse than the trauma of the actual operation. So like my mom had to do chemo and radiation, and that's why you'll never hear me talk crap about Uber or Lyft, because those two companies, they were clutch for my family, because I didn't have to quit my job or stop doing my work, you know, because I have a family to feed, to figure out how to get my mom back and forth to the doctors. And so like I would order her Uber or Lyft every day, and Uber and Lyft has like this special designation to help my mom get in and out of the house. You know what I'm saying? So I'm a big soft spot in my heart for those companies that really came through for my mom. So that was kind of like a big hiccup. And then as I started picking up a little traction, pandemic hit, you know, and then finally a few months ago, I had been tweeting about this, but like there's a gentleman, Dago, who makes a lot of jokes about overbuilding and under marketing. And so they're really funny. Like, you know, it's like this remote control with like 30 features, but like no users, you know? And it got in my head. And then one night I just started looking for like market and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, boom, the whole world opened up. And all of a sudden I'm talking to people every day, nonstop. Like even the company that I'm working with for like, you know, buying leads and doing marketing, they're contacting me like, dude, what are you doing? Like, holy crap, like you're just growing like exponentially, like that's insane, you know? And so, you know, I mean, it's just hard work, right? No shortcuts. And I feel like all the endeavors that I talked about with respect to my private practice, Bismarck Tax, and like, you know, even other little projects I had were like all the, and my education, all the stepping stones to like where I'm at today, where like, I'm handling all this money coming in and all this like hiring, and I'm a lot more strategic about it, slow to hire, quick to fire. Hard lesson you have to learn sometimes, you know, where if you don't get rid of somebody, it's the best for everybody. You know what I mean? So being, you know, slowly hiring people, sometimes it's just hiring them for a couple projects and seeing how they work. And if it's not a good fit, they get paid and you go on your way, everyone's happy. So all these little tools that I've learned along the way have been really, really helpful for me. So that's kind of like the software component of the additional, like right before the blow up and during the blow up of revenue.
So you've mentioned something that's really interesting, which you know, ties into the theme, one of the themes that we've had with a lot of our speakers, which is, you know, you have a deep insight to a customer base that most people don't really understand. So you know, you've worked with a lot of low-income people. You know, you mentioned working with people at Skid Row, and then, you know, having your own background, you know, coming from an immigrant blue collar family. How do you think that previous work has like, what sorts of insights has it given you into like the blind spots of like within the tax and you know, the bookkeeping industry, or what are some of those blind spots, and like how did you come across those, and why do you think they're not being served by the QuickBooks of the world? Like, why didn't QuickBooks build a Synkbooks first?
I mean, I always go back to like, you know, like scripture, whether you're religious or not. I go to church, I'm Christian, that's my life. But whether you are Christian or not, you know, if you think of it from a time reference in the history of the world, people have had tax problems since people were writing in the Bible, right? So in the Bible, there's people with tax issues, right? Yeah. So it really is. So again, whether you believe in the Bible or not, you can think of it as a point of reference, if that's how people choose to believe it, right? And so what that signals to me is that it's a human issue. Less, you know, whether you overeat or other things, you know, that people have that can become issues, unhealthy, whatever, you know, there's like, you know, 7 deadly sins or whatever, right? There's a human component to it, right? And so systemically, Excel works for everything and for everybody. Is like, even without Excel, those old school accounting journals are just as good. Just Excel is just a little bit faster, right? And so that is from people that know and want to do bookkeeping. So how do you attack the people that don't want to do anything, are just terrible at being compliant? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you go for those people, right? And so that's a harder sort of like market to want to even work with, right? And it's a market that people sometimes don't understand. It's like, you know, it seems very cliche, but telling people to meet them where they're at I think Synkbooks is a lot better at meeting people where they're at because it's got a lot of bumper rails. You know what I mean? And so a lot less issues or a lot less possibilities to make mistakes. I think that's what it is. And so QuickBooks, FreshBooks, Xero, very geared towards accountants. All of them. If you guys don't know that, they're geared for accountants. And they sell it to you all like everybody's a tax person. Yeah, right. I'm a litigator. No, you're not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I don't give advice about stuff I don't know. So I don't think other people should either. Right. And so I think the issue is that they make it seem like it's so easy. If it's so easy, then why are there so many issues? Right. I think that's what people don't seem to understand.
So why do you think these existing players don't want to serve that customer base?
I think it's not that they don't want to. I think they sort of do their marketing and advertising to tell people that they are serving those people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. They have marketing where, oh, everybody's a tax person. Oh, just, take a picture of this receipt. It's all so simple. So that's how they're targeting those people. And then those people buy the software and they're like, what the heck? They're like a spaceship dashboard to them. You know what I'm saying? And so that's sort of like how they're doing it. They're not changing the software, they're changing the message.
Yeah. I mean, they're like trying to get the people to change rather than, like you said, meeting them where they are.
Yeah. And it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Again, the Bible is literally thousands of years of people screwing up their accounting. It even says that, like to be like, right, you got to have your own books and records just so you know where your money's at. And people, guess what? They don't know where their money's at. And this gets across race and financial demographic. Everybody. It's the only demographic that's consistent is men. It's usually men. That's why I tell people, women are way smarter. Women don't rarely have it. And when a woman calls, she's usually calling for her brother, her uncle, her husband. I'm not kidding. Yeah. Really. Yeah.
So we only have a few minutes and then I want to save some time for questions, but I do want to talk a little bit about fundraising, because I think fundraising I personally think it's a trap. It's to a large degree, like raising money from venture capitalists and investors. So I know you have opinions about VCs. You've decided to bootstrap your company. So can you talk a little bit about how you made the decision to bootstrap and why you did that instead of raising venture capital? Okay,
so I did not decide to bootstrap because nobody wants to fund me. That's the truth. I have to be honest. Like I'm not good at pitching, first of all. You know what I mean? Some people are, I'm not. And so like I did try to raise money. The bootstrapping part is I just happen to have money too. You know what I mean? I had some really good investments in real estate, had some Bitcoin investments. And so I got really lucky being early on in some stuff. And so I am extremely good at buying property, fixing it, and flipping it. I've done it 3 times and made a lot of money doing it. I hate the work and the stress. That's where I can make a lot of money doing it. I hate the work, right? I love after, you're done and you're like, wow, my house looks so beautiful, but I don't like the process. I don't like dealing with contractors. I don't like dealing with any of that stuff, right? And so I just happen to have money to be able to bootstrap. I literally don't want to say any bad words, but I don't like when VCs tell people they should bootstrap, like they just happen to have money. That's cold-blooded. Like, I think, if you can raise money, great. And if you can bootstrap, awesome. I will never tell you to quit your job or quit college to bootstrap. If you have those like financial backing to do it, or, your family's rich or something like that, or you got something guaranteed, that's a different story. But for people like me, who the education can create like a safety net, I can always be a tax lawyer. You know what I mean? I can always go get a really nice paying job, I would never tell someone else to quit what they're doing. Other people will. They'll say, go all in, right? So I'm not all in and I'm making a bunch of money like I was all in. I know I'm making more money than people that are all in. So then what? What's your excuse for telling me that? I know I'm making way more money, right? And I'm not even full-time on my startup, right? I'm still doing my private practice. I'm still doing teaching. So that's what I'm saying, where VCs tell you this stuff. And I'm like, I just said no. I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. I'll tell you the real story. I had someone who was gonna go in on me with Synkbooks and put in a bunch of money. And this is kind of like be mindful of who you deal with. Was a good friend. He had already, we had a long history together, who promised to put X amount of money. And I said, okay, cool. Didn't even think twice about it. He's like, hey, let's hire a lawyer and, let's get this on paper. Awesome. When it was time to write the check, because I had already signed a bunch of agreements, so I was trying to move, and he's like, yeah, I'm all in, dude. Okay, cool. So we're talking to lawyers, the whole deal. He changes the amount he says he's willing to go in on. And I'm like, whoa, what the hell are you talking about? And so goes about 10% of what he said he was going to do. And I'm already signed all these contracts, right? And so he says, well, if you want the full amount, then I need to be in charge of like who you pay out and all that stuff. And basically he wanted to be my boss. And I said no. And so I ended up holding the bag. And that was a lesson that it was a very tough lesson, which I like to educate other people on. Doesn't matter how much you like or know someone. If it's not in writing, consider that two birds in the bush. You know what I'm saying? Because consider it zero, that someone's going to offer you zero. It's the best advice I can give you, which is one of the hardest lessons I learned. Still grateful that I had the money and the ability to sort of grind away and be where I'm at today. Still live a really good life. I always have really good. I mean, always after like getting educated, I've been really, I live in a nice house. I live in a good school district for my kids and all that good stuff. But if I didn't have like how I was financially, I would have probably ended up like almost broke and homeless. You know what I'm saying? Because like I put a lot of money at stake where he said he was going to put it in. I had to come up with it myself,
Yeah, no, it's I mean, to your point, I think one of the reasons that you hear this advice from VCs all the time, like go all in, is because they want you to take all the risk, right? For like an investor, they have a portfolio of investments, and you're just one part of the portfolio. So like if you go under, it doesn't really affect them. Like, they're de-risked because they have a bunch of other investments. But for you, you're still taking on a bunch of risk. You're not necessarily de-risked if you go all in because like you're the only thing in your portfolio, right? Yeah. And so I think that's why you hear that advice so often, and I think that's why it's a trap, is because unless you, like you said, you come from a rich family or you have something else going on for you, like you can be setting yourself up for a lot of like trouble personally. I mean, do you have any advice for entrepreneurs considering bootstrapping versus fundraising?
Again, the fundraising, like I have no advice. I've been rejected every single time, except for something else that I can't really talk about at the moment. So for the most part, I'm not good. It's also, they said it had to be like a 9-to-5 job and talk to, I'm not, it's not my style, guys. I'm sorry. I wish I had better advice, but I don't. My mom came to this country and she berated and beat into my head that we came to this country to work, even though I was born here. We came to this country to work and not to beg. And that's how I feel when I'm trying to raise money. So psychologically, my energy goes from like, wow, this guy's really cool, to like, this guy is kind of weird, because I just feel like I'm begging, and I'm like, I don't need to beg you. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's my attitude when I'm talking. So it's not a good attitude. So that's that. For bootstrapping, boy, slow to hire, quick to fire. Slow to hire, quick to fire. Like, be careful signing leases. Be careful doing long-term stuff. Like, even if the yearly plan is cheaper than the monthly plan, sign up for the monthly to see if you're gonna like it. I don't care if you're saving $100 for the year. Maybe the software sucks. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe like the person you're working with sucks. Like, try it out first, and then you can sign up for the year. And you're like, okay, cool, I want to save $5 a month or whatever. But be mindful of those kind of things. Like, I'm really good with money. So I've always been really good with money, been very savvy with money. Be mindful of how you spend it, how you spend your pot. It's all learning lessons. Of course, you're gonna have to take a couple whoopings. Yeah, it's just gonna happen. There's like no getting around it. Somebody's gonna rip you off. Someone's gonna overpromise and underdeliver. If you get a vibe, trust the gut and just break up. Because I know maybe somewhere down the road, someone's gonna DM me on Twitter and be like, "Yo, dude, I didn't listen to you, and this person like ripped me off, and also did this other really bad thing." You know what I'm saying? So be mindful of that. Be mindful who you partner with. Luckily, I've never really partnered with anyone. I've always been almost partnering, and then I'm like, oh God, all the red flags came out. I'm like, see ya, you know. So just be mindful of that kind of stuff,
Yeah, I mean, protect a lot of what you're talking about is like mitigating downside, right? Like you're taking on a lot of risk as an entrepreneur, and like you want to cut back on the types of risks that you're taking.
Yeah.
So we only have about 10 minutes left. I want to see if anyone has any questions, but so if you have questions, if you could just like type them into the chat. But while people ask, real quick, I just wanted to ask, can you share a little bit about what GASA is and what that initiative is, and some of what you've been trying to achieve there?
I'm sorry, with what?
GASA.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one, right? So the community has always been to uplift and support Latinx people, right? Like we're like, and whatever, you self-designate, Latinx, Chicano, Mexican, whatever, it's, from we in our CASA group, we have, from white to black, Latinos and stuff, but the objective is sort of to like push our culture forward, to have a place to sidebar and support each other. And you can see like when people have their projects, you're able to utilize the community and get like you and I working together, and even the Casaverse, the Metaverse had a Metaverso had a bunch of Casa people speaking and selling coffee and like all these cool things that we were able to sort of come and support one of our members to doing cool stuff. People have raised money, so it's like a lot of neat stuff, right? So the objective is just to like support each other, not in an exclusive way, but just for us to have our own sort of like sounding board and our own place to come up with ideas and resources to support each other. That's the number one thing, I think.
What was the inspiration for it though? Because I
kind of funny.
Yeah, I came into it only I guess like maybe a year or two after you guys started, but I thought it was interesting because I haven't come across anything like that quite yet.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about that, right? Because it's like nobody's shilling anything, right? Nobody's selling anything. That's the beauty of it. And some people have come in and they've been really intimidated and they left, and I feel bad. I'm not trying to create that kind of environment, but it's a lot of successful people in there. And it's like no one, that's why nobody in there is shilling. Like if anything, the people are offering jobs that pay really high and people are like, I don't care. It's kind of interesting. I've never seen anything like that before in my life, And so I think like the inspiration where it came in when Clubhouse came out and they were like being really exclusive. And so we were like, we should create our own little community, right? And so we did a Zoom call, and we had a few Zoom calls at first, and then we were all scattered on Twitter, right? A lot of us. And so then we finally created the Slack group to have a place to where we can all like talk and sort of like you see today. But that's sort of it came from. At first, we just made a joke and called it a Bad Bunny fan club. And then it was like, because Bad Bunny was like blowing up. He just did the Super Bowl thing or whatever a year before or whatever it was. So he was like blowing up like crazy, and so we sort of made that joke at the beginning.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's been it's weird because I'm Hispanic, grew up immigrant parents and stuff, and I've been in the tech industry for like 10 years now, and like I hadn't met that many people in tech, but it's like we're all like hidden in the corners of the internet.
Exactly.
And somehow you've managed to like bring all of these people together. I don't see any questions in the chat, so we can just wrap. Dude, is there any way that people can help, or are there any places that people can check you out on the internet in case you want to connect or learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, just Twitter. That's my number one thing. I mean, my DMs are open, so you can, and I mean that they're really open. So you can just hit me up anytime you want. I'll put my Twitter name here. yeah, you guys feel free to hit me up if you have anything that you want to like, anything. Here's the deal. If you're from this group, mention you're from this group, because if not, I charge everybody an arm and a leg to talk to me. But if you mention that you came to this group, I will talk to you for free. Like when it comes to money, I don't play around. So in my private practice, I don't play around. So, but if you mention you're from this group, I will talk to you for free, you know? So just let me know. So that's my Twitter.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, dude. I'm definitely going to follow up with you about some of the teaching stuff, because yeah, your lessons are really helpful. And for everyone in the audience, we do these every month. I still need to line up next month's speaker. I'm going to try to get Miles to be next month's speaker. And we're bringing on more entrepreneurs like Isai to share their stories. So we'll have a date and a time for that as soon as possible. But we really appreciate the time. Nancy, I don't know if there's anything else you want to mention.
No, I just want to say thank you to Isai. I love hearing the founder stories and what motivates you and what you believe. And everybody is always so, I think we've had now 4 people from your CASA group. Is it 4 people or 3? Everybody's so giving of their time and their knowledge. And it's just been great to link in with you guys.
Awesome. Happy to be here.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Isai.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you guys.